Woden is one of the foremost gods in heathen belief, holding the highest position as the Almighty Os. His Norse equivalent, Odin, in modern English referred to as Odin, shows that some form of belief in Woden was widespread amongst all Germanic-speaking peoples. His name comes from Proto-Germanic Wodinas, which comes from the Proto-Indo-European Wet. The meanings inherent to the name are therefore of rage, fury, manic inspiration, and spiritedness. Woden is oft shown to wear a hat and cloak, armed with a spear, and often is shown throughout the Germanic-speaking world as having but one eye, having sacrificed his other in exchange for esoteric wisdom. Woden is recorded as an ancestor in the genealogies of the various Anglo-Saxon kings, and he was said to be the great-grandfather of Hengist and Horsa, whose fame echoes throughout the ages. Nobility, rulership, and the warrior class are connected, therefore, to Woden. Woden is the husband of Frigg. He is accompanied by two ravens, Thought and Memory. Ravens are carrion birds, and so are connected to the aftermath of a battle, and they are said to fly across the world, observing and bearing news to their master. Woden is also said to have the power to call up the ghosts of the dead and shut them in hills and rocks, which makes him a psychopomp, a caretaker of the dead. Most literary evidence of the god, of course, comes from the later Norse era, and their beliefs are coloured by the circumstances and culture within which they found themselves. Despite this, the thematic aspects provide contextual details. The Anglo-Saxons, when still unblemished by Christianity, had raided for some time against the Romans and the Romano-Celts, evidence of which is found in the so-called Saxon Shore, and were by virtue of settling and battling in Britain likely to be a martial culture in a similar way to the later Viking Age Norse. This makes the Norse perspective influential, although not binding. It is said that on some Anglo-Saxon cremation urns, wolves are depicted alongside ravens, which hints at Woden also being accompanied by wolves. This is clearer in the Norse sources, where Odin has two wolves, Geri and Freki, both of which have meanings related to some facet of greed, covetousness, or ravenousness. Odin's followers are said to have included female furies known as Valkyries, who were the choosers of the slain. Within this name, the Val component comes out of Proto-Germanic Walas, which refers to specifically battle wounds. They are therefore the choosers of the battle slain. The word had an English cognate, Valkyrien, which at a mere glance can be seen to be the same word. There is little attestation for the original meaning of the word in Old English, or exactly what beliefs were held about them. But by 1010 AD, the Archbishop of York was complaining about continued belief in Wiccan and Valkyrien, translated as witches and sorceresses. And within manuscripts we find Latin words glossed with Old English, the classical Furies, the Roman war goddess Bellona, a raven flying over an Egyptian battlefield. And whilst the term itself does not appear, in With Farstitch, a charm for sudden pain, the pain is attributed to injury by the thrown spears of mighty women who fiercely ride across the land and across burial mounds. We cannot be sure how much of this comes from Norse influence in the region, but the fact that the Anglo-Saxons were amenable to the concepts implies that such interpretations of the Valkyrie were not so far removed from the Anglo-Saxon interpretation of Valkyrien. The Norse belief in Valhalla does not have an exact cognate, usually translated as Corpse Hall, but perhaps better translated as Hall of the Battle Slain. We have no evidence of an Old English Valhall. Equally, while the Norse sources say that the battle dead go to Valhalla in preparation for Ragnarok, we have no surviving attestations for a Ragnarok-like event in Old English. We do, however, have reference to a Willankra Winsella, a great wine hall of the proud, which is mentioned in connection with the afterlife. From this we can garner that there was a common belief across the Germanic world that the honourable battle slain chosen and guided by the servants of Woden to a great hall, dwell together after death in fellowship. His interest in war is further borne out by stories amongst the Frisians and the Lombards. Given that Woden is sometimes shown missing an eye, or in profile with only one eye visible, and with an absence of contrary evidence, it is agreeable to attribute to Woden other aspects of his Norse counterpart, such as inspiration, wisdom-seeking, and shamanistic states of ecstasy. And likewise, the Norse motif of Odin hanging on the windy tree, sacrificing himself to himself in search of knowledge, whilst in a liminal state of being neither dead nor alive, is well fitting with his Ingvaeonic character. Odin is said to traverse land and sky alike atop his horse Sleipnir, which may be the inspiration behind the Wild Hunt, a procession across the skies which is widely attested throughout Europe, albeit seen more as a scary and negative event after Christianity got a stranglehold over folklore in the later Middle Ages. The Wild Hunt occurred at the coldest and darkest point of the year, during the month of Yule, which is itself associated with Woden among other gods, and was in Anglo-Saxon England said to be led by Herlething, who may be both Woden in one of his many guises, and the origin of the story of Herne the Hunter, one who haunted Windsor Forest and hung himself from Herne's tree, which could possibly be a leftover representation of Woden's sacrifice to himself, although the link is tenuous. The Old English rune poem includes for the rune Os. Os is the originator of all language, wisdom's support, and wise man's comfort, and to every noble blessing and hope. The word Os may be translated as the singular form of the word Esa. It means God. It holds the same linguistic meaning as its Norse equivalents. As is to Aesir, as Os is to Esa. And while the word itself means merely a heathen singular god, it is quite often accepted that, as Woden is the highest of the gods, he is the god, the Os. Woden, being the originator of language, per the rune poem, fits with his Norse counterpart, who took up the runes during the self-sacrifice and then spread them and their usage. Woden is a master of Yelldorcraft, spells, charms, and enchantment. He could debuff whole armies by applying battle fetters to render them panic-stricken, but equally buff armies to remove panic. He also had the power to heal, and could be invoked for a bountiful harvest. Indeed, a custom existed of leaving the final sheaf of grain or rye unharvested as a sacrifice for his horse, which could affect whether the next year's harvest was good or not. The Ingvaeonic Heathenship Guidance on Woden. Given the extant folklore from England, Germany and Scandinavia, and taking into account Viking Age poetic evidence, it seems clear Woden is a war god, invoked for victory in battle, and interested in the outcome of conflicts between mortals. He is likewise interested in founding and nurturing civilizations, promoting social order, and might be seen as a patron of strategists, leaders, artists, and scholars. He is, in a very real sense, a god of kingship. He is seen by many as a chief among the gods, a divine father, metaphorically, if not in some cases, literally. Woden is a god with powers over tempests and storms, a god of bountiful harvests. He is the father of the thunder god Thunor, the Anglo-Saxon counterparts to the Norse god Thor, the sometime lover of Hludana and the husband of Frigg, journeying throughout the worlds on his mighty steed, seeking understanding of all things. He is wise and knows much that is hidden. He might be approached for assistance with esoteric matters and matters of the spirit. He possesses the gift of inspiration and can be called upon by those seeking to enter trance-like or ecstatic states, or those who seek poetic or artistic inspiration. Among the gods, he is a chieftain, priest, soothsayer, and magic user, with dominion over the death and the dead, as well as healing and divination. Read the page at the link on screen and down in the description for more detailed analysis of the figure, including footnotes and additional text sources.